Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today at the Looking Ahead to a More Vital Community Forum hosted by the Qcgn. My name is Susanna Rothschild. I have had the pleasure of working with the Qcgn for over a year now on the Community Development Plan project, and seeing a lot of familiar faces here today, both roundtable members as well as people that have participated in the last two community forums that I've also facilitated. So it's great to be back here today with all of you. While we get started, if you don't mind just updating your Zoom names to reflect your name and also the organization that you work with or that you're representing, that would be great and very helpful for all of us. So thank you for doing that. Today's forum is looking at the Community Development Plan, which is a plan that has been in development for the past, almost over a year now. So many of you, hopefully all of you have had a chance to take a look at the plan, which is now posted on the Qcgn website. If you haven't already, please take the opportunity to do so. It is the work of many people that are with us here today. Our roundtable members who have been developing this plan in order to work together for a more vital community. So just a little overview of the agenda for today. We're going to be starting with some opening remarks, and then Riley's going to be providing everyone with an update on the community development plan, what it looks like, where we are now, and where we'd like to head in the future. We're then going to hear from members of the roundtables. So if you recall, the community development plan features 4 development areas: data, funding, representation, and organizational and network health. And we are going to be hearing from each of the roundtables for each of those development areas on the work that has been done so far, the actions that are outlined in the plan, and the work that has been done since we last met in March. We're then going to take some time to break into breakout groups, and each of the development areas will have its own breakout room, and roundtable members as well as community members who are not active on the roundtables will get a chance to actually do some work on the plan itself, looking forward to March 2023 and what we want to accomplish between now and then. We'll come back together for a short plenary session, and then I'm going to share with you some suggestions for how we hope to evaluate the plan moving forward, and closing remarks. So that is the overview of what is going to happen today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Eva Ludwig, who is the interim president of the Qcgn, for some words of welcome. Eva, go ahead.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. It's my first introduction to you as interim president. And I want to welcome you this morning and thank you for joining us as well. And I would like to begin by acknowledging that the Quebec Community Groups Network and its member organizations carry out their activities on partially unceded lands and territories, which were the traditional homes and gathering places for many Indigenous nations whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. The Qcgn acknowledges our First Nations have a long and rich history of occupation and stewardship of these lands that long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. The Qcgn's recognition and respect for the history of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people is an important step towards building trust and creating and renewing relationships with contemporary Indigenous peoples and communities. And I know our hearts are with the Saskatchewan community, Indigenous community, that has suffered such a terrible tragedy this past week. Since the last forum was held in March, a great deal of work has been done on our community development plan. The initial draft of the plan resonated with those attending the forum, who also shared with us vital insights to make the plan more effective. The Community Vitality Roundtables, which regroup over 30 organizations serving English-speaking Quebec with the help of the Qcgn, have addressed the points that were raised and used your insights to build a stronger plan. This plan identifies areas where we can work together for a more vital community. The release of this community development plan comes at a critical time for our community. You may have heard me speak recently of how governments must respect our legitimacy as an official language language community. On October 3rd, Quebecers will be asked to make a choice as to which party will lead the next government and what values will be reflected in their leadership. Many of you are currently working to mobilize your own communities to make their voices heard. Various legislation introduced by the current government, including Bills 40, 21, and 96, has adversely impacted our community's access to services and caused many of us to question our sense of belonging within the province. We hope that this plan can serve as a guiding document to inform what measures we need the next government to take to effectively support our community's vitality. At the same time, the federal government has just completed consultations for its next official languages strategy, or as it's better known, the action plan, which will come into effect early in 2023. The Community Development Plan of English-speaking Quebec has, since 2005, acted in many ways as a companion piece to the action plan, informing priorities for new programs, investments, and opportunities for Canada's official language minority communities. The current action plan represents a $2.7 billion investment in such programs across multiple federal institutions. And our community has always had to work hard to ensure that its collective needs come out in the final strategy. And this year is no exception. However, by working together, we have in the past achieved gains, and this plan will give us the tools we need to grow the resources that are provided to our community. I would now like to play a recorded message from the Minister of Official Languages, the Honorable Ginette Petitpas-Taylor. Minister Petitpas-Taylor was with us at our last community forum in March, where she expressed her commitment to support the vitality of English-speaking Quebec and to use our plan to carry out this commitment. Since that time, many community organizations, including the Qcgn, have had the opportunity to engage with the minister and her team as part of her cross-Canada consultation tour on official languages, where we voiced our collective concerns with the new action plan and the place of English-speaking Quebec within the government's strategy for official languages. We are grateful to have the minister, who is traveling today and could not join us on Zoom, but she will be with us nevertheless to say a few words. Abel, if you will play the recorded message.
Hi everyone, bonjour à tous. It's a real pleasure for me to be able to say a few words as we mark the launch of your new development plan for the next 5 years. But first, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking part in our cross-Canada consultation for the next action plan on official languages. I was extremely pleased to see many of you during my tour in Montreal and the Eastern Townships, where I witnessed firsthand your commitment to the vitality of your communities. It was important for me to hear a diversity of voices, and I'm happy that we were able to count on your participation. As you know, our commitment to supporting and defending the rights of official language minority communities across the country remains, and your priorities align very well with our government's objectives. This includes implementing a robust action plan on official languages that meets your needs and ensures the vitality of the English-speaking minority community of Quebec. There are many areas where we can foster collaboration and create new opportunities for the next generations of English-speaking Quebecers, and we can only make this happen by working together. So I want to take a moment to congratulate Qcgn on their new community development plan. I look forward to continuing this work with you and your partners in the coming months, particularly the renewal of the action plan and the passing of Bill C-13. Have a great forum, everyone. Once again, thank you. Merci.
We thank the minister for addressing us today. We appreciate her taking the time to meet with our community, and we look forward to the next opportunity for exchange with her. The minister made note of a renewed federal action plan, as well as the need to pass legislation to modernize the Official Languages Act. The English-speaking community of Quebec has long shared these priorities and endeavored to support their implementation. I therefore need to stress that for many of us who took part in consultations this summer, it has been challenging to see where our community fits into the new vision put forward by the Government of Canada for official languages, which, as the Qcgn has stated many times, takes an asymmetrical approach to protecting and promoting the vitality of the two official language minority communities. And we get the short end of the stick. The minister's message indicates a will to continue our dialogue and to continue to hear our concerns, which we at Qcgn will continue to actively do. I do feel it necessary to make one clarification. The minister refers to the Qcgn Community Development Plan. This is a common error. Indeed, the Qcgn is proud to have played a long-standing role as the steward of successive community development plans. The plans, however, have always belonged to the community and not to the Qcgn alone. We recognize that this is an important distinction. Many organizations have contributed their time to this plan and will play leading roles in carrying out its actions. Many of you know that the Qcgn has invested itself over the last few years to a process of renewal. This has included discussions about what role the Qcgn must play to ensure the success of our community's collective efforts to strengthen its vitality. Today, we will continue to have this discussion about how the Qcgn can most effectively support this process by serving as a backbone to the community vitality roundtables, and how this can benefit all stakeholders. I will now return the floor to Riley Dalis-Fine, Manager of Community Outreach and Engagement, who will speak about the work being done in the community to create the Community Development Plan for 2022 to 2027. But before I do so, I would like to thank Riley for the stellar work he has done over the past 2 years to help bring this plan to fruition. Thank you, Riley. Now I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Eva. It's been an incredible pleasure and a privilege, as I've said many times in these forums and in my meetings with all of you, to be able to work with the community towards the realization of this community development plan. It's something that we've been working on for a very long time, and it gave me an incredible sense of pride to be able to play a role in this process when I was able to see the product. I hesitate to call it a finished product because it is a living document, but to finally see a plan with the force of the community behind it put into action. And I'm incredibly excited for what's going to come next. This is typically the point in the forum where I tend to go on and on about the many steps that we've taken as a community to get to where we are today. I'm not going to do that today. That's all written in the plan, which you all have access to, and which I'm sure one of my colleagues will be happy to place in the chat for reference. What I'd like to do today is speak to something more forward-looking, and that's in particular how this plan is going to work, and especially on behalf of the Qcgn, how we're going to support this as a backbone organization. So I'll just ask my colleague, Abel, to go ahead and load the PowerPoint. I have a brief presentation. And I'm also very excited that many of our colleagues at the community roundtables will be sharing as well. So is it big enough for everybody? That's okay?
I think we need to full screen it, Riley.
Full screen, okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. So if you'd like to go ahead and go to the next slide. one back. Yeah, there we go. It's a fickle beast. Microsoft PowerPoint. One ahead, please. There we go. Okay, so just a really quick overview of the community development plan titled Working Together for a More Vital Community was drafted by the Community Vitality Roundtables, with a first draft presented to the community in March of this year. The Community Vitality Roundtables validated this very important piece of work in June, and it received an endorsement from the Qcgn Board of Directors in July of 2022, which included a pledge to support, to the best of the Qcgn's ability, this plan as a backbone organization to the process. 55 community stakeholders were directly engaged in the process of developing this plan through the 4 community roundtables, which work on the strategic areas that were identified for community development. And the plan contains 14 desired outcomes that we would like to see that together, collectively, bring us to a more vital community. Next slide, please. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're using a collective impact approach, and the definitions you see on the screen are provided by the Tamarack Institute for Community Engagement, which I believe many of us are familiar with. They define collective impact as a disciplined cross-sector approach to solving complex issues on a large scale. And they define the backbone role as an organization responsible for providing the required infrastructure to sustain the collective impact of the initiative. Probably sounds familiar to many of you. Now, some of you who have been working collectively for a long time would be surprised to know that as a concept, collective impact has only technically existed for the last 11 years. It was officially introduced in an article in the Stanford Social Innovation Review, which focused on the success of an initiative in Cincinnati, Ohio, where leaders in the education sector came together to improve educational outcomes. This was achieved, according to this article, by these leaders who came from the private sector, from community organizations, and from various levels of government to look beyond their individual agendas and needs and focus on the bigger picture of what was needed to improve educational outcomes. This meant breaking out of the silos that we often find ourselves working in order to understand how we can complement one another's strengths and achieve a stronger outcome. Next slide, please. Since this time, collective impact as a theory and as a practice has evolved tremendously, taking root not only in the United States, but also here in Canada and elsewhere in the world. In Canada, a major proponent of this work is the Tamarack Institute for Community Engagement, which is based in Hamilton, Ontario, and which counts among its participants many organizations from English-speaking Quebec. The backbone organization is expected to play 6 key functions. The first, guiding vision and strategy. So providing, not setting the vision, not necessarily creating the vision, but collecting input from the many stakeholders involved to develop a more cohesive and holistic vision, and providing the details necessary to guide an effective strategy, providing data and analyzing data to inform, to allow for evidence-informed practices and intervention. Supporting aligned activities means having an overview of the many different activities that are deployed throughout a community and ensuring that there is alignment between them with respect to the objectives that they wish to accomplish. Establishing shared measurement is a piece that we'll be speaking about a couple times today, and refers to a collective approach and an agreement amongst all stakeholders as to how to collect data and what kind of data and information should be collected to measure the impact of our initiative and track the progress of our actions. Building consensus ensuring that stakeholders have a common ground that they can access where they can agree on the objectives that they wish to accomplish, advancing policy, ensuring that the key decision makers and takers whose actions impact our communities are sensitive to our needs, and are able to work with our community effectively to develop policy that reflects our needs. And of course, mobilizing funding. It's no secret that funding is a major priority of the community, and indeed we have an entire roundtable devoted to this issue and to the systemic issues which underlie the restrictions that many of us face when trying to grow our organizations. The Backbone organization has an important role in ensuring that the funding is secured to allow our initiatives to be successful, because we all know it's not cheap. What a Backbone organization does not do is it does not unilaterally set the agenda for collective action. This is a decision that is made by the community and has to be constantly revisited and reevaluated to ensure that it continues to reflect the will of the community as we grow and as we encounter new partners. It does not include any expectation that the Backbone organization receives all of the funding for the initiative. In fact, this initiative only works if we have a robust group of stakeholders who are well supported, and a little later we'll have the opportunity to talk about some of the exciting initiatives that complement this community development plan and which are which require their own resources to be sustained. And it does not include any kind of self-appointment by the Backbone organization. The ability of a Backbone organization to serve as such depends on community input and validation, which has been a rigorous part of this process to date. Go to the next slide, please. So the way it looks for the community development plan is through, of course, the community roundtables, the community vitality roundtables, of which we all know there are 4, focused on their respective areas of development: data, funding, organizational and network health, and representation. And we know that the Qcgn is somewhere on the left of this diagram, and the unit within the Qcgn that's responsible for making these roundtables operate is our community development team, with which I currently work. There are different approaches to Backbone work. In some cases, a new organization will be created to support the initiative. In other instances, one of the participants will take on that role of Backbone organization. But what our model and our approach most closely resembles is something called the seconded model of Backbone support, which means that an existing organization dedicates part of its operation to supporting the Backbone structure. And this is how we've been working from the beginning, where the community development team has been interacting with the community vitality roundtables, and most recently with the roundtable co-chairs, who oversee some of the long-term planning aspects within their respective roundtables, and work with each other and with the community development team in order to act as something of a steering committee for the whole process, and to allow for the flow of information between the Qcgn and the roundtables to accomplish many of the 6 key functions outlined earlier. Meanwhile, the Qcgn community development team works closely with other members of the Qcgn to ensure that mutual support is there. The Qcgn has its directorates on public policy, communications, and access to justice. All of these activities are essential actions in our community that inform the advocacy we need to advance. And the community development team works closely with all of these actors to ensure that the work gets done. We can go to the next slide, please. Backbone support is only one of 5 conditions for collective impact work to succeed. The other 4 are a common agenda, shared measurement, mutually reinforcing activities, and continuous communication. And what I'd like to do over the next couple minutes is run through each of these and provide examples of how we're actually moving beyond the theory to accomplish these. And we already have many of these conditions underway. I'm not going to pretend that we have it all in the bag. It's, like I said, an ongoing process that has to constantly be reevaluated. And part of my job as manager is to always be revisiting these aspects, always looking for areas where we can make improvements and ensure that the community is always on board with the work that's being done. So if we go to the first of these, a common agenda, that's the next slide, there we go. So the idea here that participants have a shared vision of change, common understanding of the problem, and a joint approach to solving it through agreed upon actions. Now, this is never easy to, this should never be treated as any kind of fait accompli, but I would like to underline that before we started these roundtables, broad consensus was achieved through the consultation process that existed for the last 3 years, where the Qcgn worked with other leaders in the community to ensure that we had a shared understanding of community vitality. We came to an understanding that the English-speaking community of Quebec is a community that is vital, yet vulnerable. And we all know what the challenges are. We all know, I think, what challenges are coming. And we collaborate frequently to address shared challenges. An example being the work done with Appel, the coalition of education partners, to address common challenges contained in Bill 40, the legislation to overhaul the education system. So this common agenda was developed and proposed through consultations held in 2020-2021. And we fostered a shared understanding, especially around the 4 key cross-sectoral issues which impact and restrict community vitality. So the model of forming the roundtables around those 4 issues is a key part of enabling people to come around a common agenda by focusing on issues such as funding, data, organizational capacity, and our representation in decision-making circles as something that we can all agree on across sectors and in different regions. Next slide, please. Shared measurement means collecting data and measuring results consistently across all participants to ensure efforts remain aligned and participants hold each other accountable. No easy feat. Something that requires an enormous amount of time and resources to get everybody on the same page, to keep everybody on the same page, and to stay on top of a changing environment. The most recent census, of course, as you all know, came out last week. It represented many changes for our community. At the same time, we are growing, which can add to our vitality in some ways. However, it raises a lot of questions about how we define English-speaking Quebecers, and these are questions that, of course, are going to be prominent, particularly in this current electoral campaign that we find ourselves in. Luckily, many of our partners have strengths in data collection, analysis, and mobilization, and we have an entire roundtable that is dedicated to the theme of data and is going to present the desired outcomes in that area shortly, which are going to be complementary to shared measurement. We have an ongoing and transparent evaluation process that we'll speak about a little bit later that is linked intrinsically with the community development plan, and opportunities are there to seek more sustained investment in research for multiple levels of government. I'm thinking in particular of the federal action plan, the consultations for which wrapped up this summer, and which many of our partners are still involved in active discussions with the departments to ensure that the next plan and strategy reflects our needs. We can go ahead to the next slide. Mutually reinforcing activities, different activities being coordinated through a plan of action. That's what the community development plan is really all about. The fact that we were able to add to the structure of the community vitality roundtables by having members of these roundtables identify as co-chairs coming from diverse sectors and different parts of Quebec are going to allow for really incredible cross-pollination of ideas. And the activities that you're going to see in the plan are complementary to one another. In many instances, moving forward on one action will in fact increase leverage to move forward on another. For example, funding and data are very closely linked in that respect, with the necessity to collect information to improve our case to receive more funding and to receive our fair share. We'll be able to work on this a little bit together today as well. If we can move to the next slide. And continuous communication, required to build trust, share mutual objectives, and appreciate common motivation. Now, somebody, I'm not going to say who, told me recently that they receive more emails from me than from any other person in the community. And I think you can interpret that a number of ways. I'm sure that not everybody loves and getting these emails, and we've had an incredibly busy summer with respect to advocating to the federal government while also developing this plan. And I commend everybody for their ongoing participation in this process. I know it's been really tiring for a lot of people, but it's necessary. We need to have those habits of communicating with one another, sharing information, and we do collaborate and communicate extensively. And we saw this most recently during the Cross Canada consultation tour, where we all did come together around common needs, and that required a lot of background communication between different forums and consultations. And it's really one of the most inspiring parts of my job, was being able to communicate to that extent. So this continuous communication is going to be built into our plan going forward. And I think we can, so we're at the end of my presentation, and I would like to now invite members of the community roundtables and the chairs of the community roundtables to speak a little bit to the work that is being done in their respective areas. And I'll first call on the data roundtable co-chairs, John Buck and Patrick Donovan, to talk a little bit about what's happening in their neck of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. I think I'll get us started, and Patrick is going to collaborate with me to share with you this presentation. Let me start by first thanking Qcgn. This process, I think, is a very valuable process, and I'm delighted to be part of it and to have been part of it up until this point. I really have appreciated the leadership and the diversity that Riley just referred to, as well as the kind of far-reaching participation of individuals from our community, our English-speaking community in Quebec. So very much appreciate this. And I do want to acknowledge certainly the terrific work, Riley, that you're doing in this. I do appreciate those emails and those phone calls. And I think it's an important part of making this happen. In fact, I quite look forward to them. And I think this is, again, something that you've done an outstanding job leading. And I'm glad that you were there working through this with us. Also, Susanna, who I think consistently has been part of the roundtable discussions and supporting us. And that's been really essential, I think, in making this progress. Patrick and I are going to share with you a brief presentation. I think, Riley, I think you're controlling the slides, so I'll try to cue you, or someone is controlling the slides. So Sylvia's got them, I think. I'll try to cue the changes that are happening, but just to prepare all of you as you're about to experience the presentation, I'll share that we really want to do a few things. We want to introduce the data roundtable to you and really discuss its purpose. What is the purpose? And very briefly get into what it is that we're proposing to do. We have 3 outcomes that we're seeking to work on over the course of the next 5 years. And we want to start with the first year, where we're going to describe to you really about 7 deliverables that we're targeting. And I want to be quite deliberate and transparent with you, because in fact, I want to engage you. I would like for you to be part of this roundtable. I'd love for you to come to the breakout session that we're going to have afterward and participate in any way that you can. We are making a commitment, I think, at this point to try to meet 4 times this year as a roundtable. Evidently, there's going to need to be work happening in the background in between those meetings, but that's the kind of commitment we're looking for. And in fact, I'm here not only to share information with you, but again, really to appeal to you to join us and be part of this important roundtable, as are the others. And I think you'll see that as we go through this. The last thing I'll say before I get into the slides, somewhat sheepishly, I'll say we stole, with permission, this presentation format from Katie Lowry. And so I am starting with this. And again, I say that somewhat sheepishly because Katie's really the author of the format and we loved it so much. We said, we're just going to take this, and she allowed us to do that. So Katie, we'll look forward to your presentation a little bit later. But thank you for giving us what I think is a great template that everyone here will benefit from seeing as we go through it. So our purpose, this is really our purpose. Community sector serving English-speaking Quebec cultivates a sustained ongoing capacity to collect, analyze, and share information, qualitative and quantitative, necessary to more deeply understand our community. That's our change statement. I refer to it as our purpose. That's what we're going to be working on through the work that's pursued by the roundtable. And with that, I'll get right into kind of the 3 outcomes that we're seeking that will be on the next slide. We talk about 3 outcomes over the course of the 5 years. One is the community sector serving English-speaking Quebec enhances and expands its shared understanding of how more effective data collection and analysis strengthens community interventions. So building that understanding being the first outcome that we're seeking. The second one, an accessible common knowledge base provides ongoing awareness of the lived realities of English-speaking Quebecers and the vitality of our community of communities. So something that's accessible, something that we can all rely upon, and something that we hope we will all use so that we're speaking from the same page when we're talking about our communities throughout the province. Information, the third outcome, information collected and shared serves as an effective means for mobilization, advocacy, and contributes to desired shifts in policy, programming, and funding for English-speaking Quebec. So this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. Right? You know, what do we do with this information? Well, we're hoping that it will create some impact for us, some positive impact, clearly, and that's what we're striving for. We're not gathering information for the sake of gathering information. We're gathering information that we hope can be used and information that can influence in positive ways decisions that are going to be made about our community and benefits for our community in the future. The next slide we'll get into the very specific deliverables that we're looking for. And again, it's a 5-year plan. So we've mapped out with quite a lot of clarity what we're hoping to achieve, certainly in the first year. And that's the part that I'm going to share with you. So that first outcome, and I won't repeat each one of the outcomes again, but you'll see that desire for us to create awareness and understanding about the information. And we have with this a couple of deliverables. The first in year 1 is to develop a framework for measuring capacity, as well as needs of community stakeholders to access, produce, and use data. It really provides the foundation for the future, and we're hoping to have anywhere from 25 to 30, and hopefully we might even have more than that, but 25 to 30 organizations validate the framework as it's created, and this will be very much the topic of our work in the very near future. The other deliverable, and I'm going to introduce this, but I'm going to rely upon Patrick to share with us details about the Community Knowledge Open Library, CCAL, as many of you will understand in a moment. But this is the deliverable is to compile sources of information produced outside of conventional channels, known as gray literature. Data collected from a broader array of sources and perspective contributes to a more complete knowledge base. At least 40 organizations contribute to shared resource. I'm proud to say, actually, my organization, CDEC, is one of those organizations that's contributing to CCAL, and a great initiative. And Patrick, if you'll introduce it to us, I think, Sylvia, on the next slide, we have a dedicated slide for CCAL.
Yeah, thanks, John. So I'll briefly present what CCAL is. It's in the past, I work for Qcgn, Quebec English Speaking Communities Research Network at Concordia University, which is at the moment the only university-based research unit dedicated specifically to English speaking Quebec. And in the past, we've been working with Brendan O'Donnell, who produced, since the 1970s, he put together this bibliography of mostly academic studies relating to English speaking Quebec. So it's a good place, a first step for researchers, but also community organizations to go and see what kind of research has been done on different topics. But we realized what was missing from this is a lot of these documents produced by community organizations. The stuff that's not formally published, that is sent out to people on email and tends to disappear after a few years. A lot of these organizations, as you know, have changing staff. Archives are not always conserved and so on. So our goal with CCAL was to gather all this sort of gray literature, this material, the annual reports, press releases, newsletters, pamphlets, PowerPoint presentations, all this stuff that tends to kind of get lost over the years and is not really collected by libraries and so on. So far, this was launched in spring this year. So far, there are about 1,786 documents online from 32 different partners. We have agreements with 32 partners. We have a backlog of about 2,000 documents waiting to be cataloged. We have one cataloger, and we're going to get a second one, hopefully in the next few weeks. And that includes documents from everyone like Qcgn, but also the regional groups, the sectoral groups like ELAN and CHSSN, the Black Community Resource Center, and also groups that no longer exist like Alliance Quebec. So all of these can be downloaded, are stored on our library. They can be downloaded in PDF format. So it's not just an index, you have the full document, and you could do a full word search within the document. So if you're looking at all the documents that mention, I don't know, Simon-Jolin Barrette for some reason, then you could type Simon-Jolin Barrette and all the documents that mention his name will pop up. If you're not a partner yet, please reach out to us. You can go to ccall.questgreen.ca, click on the top right under contact, and all you have to do is sign an agreement. It entails very little other work on your part. We do 99% of the work of tracking down docs, and every 6 months we do a survey of the websites of the various partner organizations to get their more recent publications online. And we even have some money to give to organizations if you've got paper documents that need to be scanned. So in short, this provides a place to archive all your sort of public documents, and the community has an online library you can go to if you're looking for instance, what have all the community organizations said on C13? If you're looking to write a brief, you can go see what other groups have said and maybe get inspired there. So that's CCAL. We have other online tools. I mentioned the bibliography. We're also working on a data portal for Qcgn data sets relating to Quebec's official language minority. We have a quarterly newsletter, which deals with recent publications and so on. So these are all tools that can be mobilized to get people more aware of the data on the community that exists. So, and we can't do this without your cooperation, so we look forward to working with you all. And I'll pass the mic back to John, who can deal with the other, the rest of the action plan. Sorry, not action plan, the development priorities.
Thanks, Patrick. That's great. Great resource as well. That is a big part of our data collection process. So very much appreciated. The next slide we'll take us to the second outcome that we're looking to for the target, of course, through the course of the next 5 years. We'll look very specifically at year one on this one. So the outcome being an accessible common knowledge base that provides ongoing awareness of the lived realities of English-speaking Quebecers and the vitality of our community of communities. In year one, we'll see that knowledge and data is methodically maintained and transferred as the community sector evolves, as community groups exchange resources, information, insight, and tips. So the whole objective here is for us to see community organizations and leaders achieve a better understanding of best practices and ways that they can gather this information. So that is our outcome number 2. Our next outcome, the third outcome, actually has 4 deliverables during the course of this year, and I'll go through those in a fairly deliberate way. First, just to repeat the outcome that we're looking for, information collected and shared serves as an effective means for mobilization and advocacy and contributes to desired shifts in policy, programming, and funding for English-speaking Quebec. Again, we want to do real stuff with this information that's being gathered. And this is probably one of the, I think, the most important ways that we can speak to that is to actually try to influence with this common base of knowledge that we are gathering. In year 1, we'll identify areas and sectors where policy and funding gaps exist and assess needs for additional data collection and develop recommendations for addressing gaps in community knowledge. This one for me sparks the important recognition that there are other roundtables, and there are clearly going to be opportunities for us to collaborate. And this is, I think a really great example. We do have a group that's looking very specifically at funding, and no doubt we'll find great ways to collaborate with them. So that will be our first deliverable as we look to this year. On the next slide, we'll look to the second deliverable. Identify areas, sectors where policy and funding gaps exist and assess knowledge needs for additional data collection, develop recommendations for addressing gaps in community knowledge, improve community knowledge around the community issues and policy funding gaps. And the process involves and receives validation from 20 organizations in various sectors of activity. The third deliverable on the next slide. Examine the feasibility of a shared model for ongoing data collection, environmental scanning that integrates the common objectives across identified development areas, data, funding, representation, as well as organizational and network health. So once again, working with our other roundtables. The community sector has access to infrastructure for managing data that assists in the identification of policy gaps, as well as program and funding needs. And 10 to 15 organizations from all 4 community roundtables are engaged in this process. And the final deliverable, again, associated with outcome number 3, is on the next slide. Identify top resources used by the community for data collection and research, circulate to roundtable participants and community at large. Community objective, again here, the community groups have easy access to tried and true data resources, and a list with 5 to 10 resources is assembled that can be quite helpful for all of us, hopefully. And I think that takes us to the final slide. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one remaining in here. Let's go. All right, here we are. Lead discussion on belonging and identify to develop an inclusive position on who is an English-speaking Quebecer and what organizations and institutions represent and serve our community. A shared understanding of who is an English-speaking Quebecer and what organizations and institutions are connected to our community, and validation again by community roundtables. And that is our final deliverable, actually, and that will bring us to the final slide, which brings us to the funding piece. Again, I just want to appeal to you, if the data roundtable is of interest, we will be having some breakout sessions and just encourage you to be in touch. It's a great place to be introduced to information and a great way to gather some information. And just want to thank Qcgn again for this great opportunity.
Thanks, John. So I'll be giving the funding presentation actually on behalf of the Funding Roundtable. Aki Chitakov is the Director General, or the Executive Director, sorry, of Yes Employment and Entrepreneurship. Many of you know him and are familiar with the work done by that organization. And unfortunately, he could not be with us today because they have their annual general meeting this morning. So he sends regrets, and I also sent regrets that we had an unfortunate scheduling conflict. But now we have the roundtables that are going to really be able to work together and make sure that conflicts like that don't happen again in the future. So I'm going to try to go pretty quickly because I recognize that we are a little bit behind schedule. And I was hoping that we could have time for questions. We'll try to save it to the end of this presentation after the other roundtables have a moment to speak. But feel free at any time also to use the chat function to place a question, and we'll get to that as well afterwards or during the plenary. So, John, if you're sheepish about your presentation, I'm downright embarrassed. I did not put I also took the template that was provided by Katie, but my piece is going to be a little bit more bare bones, I guess. You see here the members of the funding roundtable, and you can also access that list online. And if we go to the next slide, I will walk through some of the major planks of that table's plan. So the change statement here is that English-speaking Quebec is an equal partner when and where decisions are made concerning policies, programs, and funding to ensure that resources are allocated equitably and in a manner that responds to the unique and diverse needs of our organizations and communities. So funding, pretty straightforward issue. We want more of it, right? Well, it's not always so straightforward as that. There's a lot to unpack in the funding landscape to ensure that not only are the investments being made, in an effective manner and achieving the results we want to achieve, but that it's being distributed equitably, and that organizations who face perhaps barriers are being considered equitably in those decisions. And that's why we want the community to be an equal partner wherever decisions are made concerning funding. So if we want to go ahead to the next slide, 3 outcomes to get us there: that program funding and political support from all levels of government funding partners increasingly responds to community needs. And again, this is all in the community development plan. I strongly encourage you to take a look. That political partners and funders are increasingly committed to supporting not only activities, but organizational capacity, core operations, policy capacity, and collective impact work, and addressing issues such as diversity, equity, inclusion, and vulnerability. And finally, that the community sector secures access to diverse and stable funding, being able to continue to advocate for our fair share from the federal and provincial public partners, but also expand into other avenues that could provide funding. Again, we'll be looking at first-year actions, and with the next slide, we'll get into what that first outcome is going to look like. So, programming, funding, and political support from all levels of government and funding partners increasingly respond to community needs. We plan to achieve this by working on exposing some of the information that's out there about funding, developing an evidence base that demonstrates the case for increased and more equitable funding. And we're doing this through the production of reports on funding allocated to community sector. The required indicator here being that the report includes examples from at least 15 community groups. And in fact, we've got a couple of reports that are in production that will be finalized this month. There's, of course, the work that we're doing to inform the Minister of Official Languages of our needs for support through the next Official Languages Action Plan or strategy, as well as a more focused report done in partnership with several partners around economic development funding and funding particularly in that sector. Also, we look to work towards the creation of a shared database of funders by consulting stakeholders to put in place a plan for how that kind of database could be sustained. And we're looking to identify certainly a minimum of 4 federal departments that would be included. If we move to the next slide. That political partners and funders are increasingly committed to supporting organizational capacity. What we're going to do is outline funding inequities and seek commitments in funding programming and policy from all levels of government. Now, this is an outcome that I think is supported very much by the actions cited previously to develop these reports and to demonstrate the evidence base. Whereas the last action focused on the need to produce these reports, this is really about how we go about developing the content and ensuring that we're not just talking about funding strictly as a numbers game, but also how that funding gets allocated and what kind of broader, more overarching policy decisions ultimately impact that funding. If we can move to the next, my final slide, I think, for this roundtable, that the community sector secures access to diverse and stable funding. So this is an ongoing issue an ongoing action rather, that while we continue to work towards developing more equitable funding on the supply side of things, that we are also building our own capacity as community organizations to access that funding through the dissemination of tools and diverse kind of strategies, as well as trainings around fundraising, grant writing, and the rest of the required skill set that can make or break a successful funding application. So those are really the key planks of that plan in a nutshell. And again, I'll reiterate what John said earlier, that we're going to be taking a deeper dive into these issues a little bit later on in the breakout rooms, and I very much look forward to those discussions. And we can go ahead to the next slide, where I believe we'll be inviting Katie Lowry to present.
Yes, good morning, everyone. As you may tell, I'm a little under the weather. So just to begin, I wanted to say that, in fact, Judy Wong, a member of our roundtable, did build this PowerPoint. So kudos go to Judy for that. She has been a great help in bringing together this piece, and actually with being sick, I reached out to Judy yesterday and she's going to help me with this presentation. So I appreciate that. But before I pass it over to Judy, I just want to say that this roundtable, prior to speak a little bit about the work that has been done to date before she presents what is in it. We have been prompted by questions around each of the outcomes, and these questions we wanted to break down. Really, the goal is to break down the work ahead into actionable, concise, and realistic pieces, so that really the members of the roundtable and anyone else who is listening and maybe feels that they have some expertise in the areas that Judy is going to speak to, I really want to invite you to join the breakout room, because we want to get started on some of this important work, and the more experts we can bring to the table, the better the work will be. So on that note, maybe I will pass it to Judy to break down what is in the presentation, if that's all right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and Katie sells herself short. This was a collaboration. Again, thank you to Qcgn and Riley for his continuous work. I think he works 24/7 on this plan. Our 15, last count, we were 15 members, a pretty diverse group, which serves our outcome, our objectives really well. So if we go to the first slide or the next slide, our big idea of where we want to go is community sector organizations and institutions serving English-speaking Quebecers strengthen their capacity to fulfill their missions while fostering a culture of collaboration and overall inclusion. So we want to make the group bigger, we want to include everybody, and we want to eliminate redundancies that, different groups are doing the same work. How can we share and be more efficient in what we do while we're including a broader community? Next slide. So our group over the next 5 years has 4 objectives, 4 outcomes that we're looking for. Stronger culture of collaborations with fewer organizations working in silos, collaboration on programs and projects that reach the larger community, English-speaking Quebecers, and achieving greater collective impact and vitality for those communities. We want to strengthen the mobilization of community organizations and leaders to defend and promote our common interests and achieve greater community vitality. And community, of course, becomes more inclusive thanks to the presence of a greater number of diverse voices. So that is, in 5 years, those are what we're hoping to achieve. We will achieve. Next slide, please. So Katie has given our group, our roundtable, some thought-provoking questions on each outcome. So I'm going to share those with you as well. So thanks to a stronger culture of collaboration, fewer organizations are working in silos. So our first year objective, which we're hopefully going to achieve by Q1 2023, is to survey multiple organizations covering at least 6 sectors, consult community sector organizations serving English-speaking Quebecers to identify existing services and initiatives to create a comprehensive inventory of available services, identify and report on challenges to organizational capacity. For that objective, Katie's asked the group, and she asked our roundtable, and we'll ask the larger group, what are the best methods for finding the 35 organizations from at least 6 sectors? And would you have any organizations to recommend? And maybe if you some come to the top of your head, you can throw them in the chat. And our sectors could be arts, culture, heritage, education, employment, and families. And the second thought-provoking question she provides, you have any experience, knowledge around existing databases of English-speaking service providers? So if any of you have that, if you could throw it in the chat, that would be great. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Our second outcome is to create a community toolbox so organizations can collaborate on programs and projects that reach a larger number of English-speaking Quebecers and achieve greater collective impact and vitality for our communities. And the tools support collective impact initiatives. So develop and share tools that provide community partners with helpful resources to develop collective impact initiatives. And these would include templates for collaboration agreements and shared reporting templates. So we don't all have to reinvent the wheel. There's a standard that works for everybody, and we share it. So Katie's question for that outcome is, what would you define as a tool that would support collective impact initiatives? Do you have any examples? Next slide. Katie, do you want me to keep going, or do you want to jump in at any time?
No, you're doing great, Judy. Thank you.
Okay. Outcome number 3, we want to strengthen the community vitality. So strengthen mobilization of community organizations and leaders to defend and promote common interests and achieve greater community vitality. So capacity building workshops support organizational network health and result in more robust community capacity. And we know there's quite a few in the English-speaking senior center, there's an accreditation they can receive for wellness centers, and it's a program through the CHSSN. So there's things like that we can share on a larger scale. Consult with community stakeholders to identify needs for capacity building. Draw on themes identified within organizational network roundtables, such as fundraising, organizational management, retention, and board development. And for that outcome, our dear Katie says, do you or your organization, your network, have experience in creating and or executing needs assessment surveys? Would you have a recommendation? I can't see the chat right now, but I hope it's filling up. And next slide, please. Strengthen mobilize, the diverse voices. The community becomes more inclusive thanks to the presence of a greater number of diverse voices and organizations. So inclusion of more diverse voices expands community action. Conduct a scoping review on how other groups, communities make room for more voices. Identify best practices to include underrepresented individual sectors, populations, and collective action, and provide evidence-informed recommendations to support the participation of these groups in community collective action. And for that, Katie suggests, which community communities or groups do you think are underrepresented and not being heard? Same thing, please drop it in the chat if you have some suggestions. And that's it for our group for now. We're good.
So Abel, we can move on, and I will. So I'm back, everybody. I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the representation actions as well. Again, because there was not somebody available to deliver this presentation on behalf of the roundtable. So I'll again speak pretty quickly because I am cognizant of the time. So we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. What representation is all about, is that English-speaking Quebec has a more vital and thriving presence across Quebec society, providing our minority language community with the strong voice and visibility required to exert influence on decisions which impact our development and growth. And the way that we came up with this as a one of the 4 development areas was a recurring theme across various sectors where decisions that were being made that impacted everything from funding to all kinds of legislation that impacts our communities. It really comes down to the fact that we're not adequately represented in government. We're all familiar with the fact that we're underrepresented within not only the provincial civil service, but other levels as well. And this trickles down to the community and has several negative impacts, which we're going to be addressing. So if we move to the next slide, we're again looking at the targeted outcomes that we engage with leaders from diverse backgrounds and identify change makers who can advocate, that we increase representation at all levels of government so that civil service has a better understanding of community needs, and this leads to enhanced services and information, that there be a greater awareness and understanding of our communities and the challenges that we face in French-speaking Quebec and the rest of Canada, and that the English-speaking community of Quebec has the required resources to effectively bring together the many constituent communities that comprise English-speaking Quebec, which we often call a community of communities, so that we can bring everybody's needs and interests forward to affect change. And here's how we're going to do it. Next slide, please. So to engage with leaders from diverse backgrounds and identify change makers, that's going to look like consulting community stakeholders, finding out how our different organizations that are involved in our community reaching their own populations and the communities that they serve. What kind of practices can be shared? Who's doing a great job? Who needs help? Who's facing what kind of challenges? And then what kind of strategies can we implement as a community to engage the community at large? The folks who maybe don't know that we're out there, that don't know that there are organizations that are fighting for their interests and providing them with services that they've maybe just assumed are not available to them. So we're looking to get broad validation first within the roundtables and then with the community as a whole. And much of this is going to actually take place at the next community forum. If we go to the next slide, we're going to talk about increasing representation in government, enhancing services and information. We need to map out the representation that we currently have. What are the opportunities to get involved? What does English-speaking representation look like? And what are the bodies that are currently out there to represent our interests? How many of us know about the provincial and regional access committees on health and social services? How many of us know about the various communities that are within the education sector that have opportunities to consult and advise on policy in that sector? And how much of a voice do these different bodies really have? We also need to support the existing initiatives to increase our representation in civil service, and very happy to have involved in our roundtables as well as in the community development plan as a whole, personnel from the Provincial Employment Roundtable and the Quebec Consortium English language CEGEPs, colleges and universities, who are leading on a very important project in collaboration with l'École nationale de l'administration publique in order to understand the barriers to our representation in the civil service and provide and render more visible opportunities to get involved and access jobs in that sector. Next slide, please. Greater awareness in French-speaking Quebec and the rest of Canada. We've been working for a long time to partner with our counterparts in the French official language minority community. And we were able to have some productive discussions with our partners, notably at the last Official Languages Summit in Ottawa. We're able to work with organizations such as the Fédération des Aînés et des Aînés, du Canada français, and identify our common interests with these organizations. So this work consists of identifying the networks and communities that already exist, perhaps in many of your own neighborhoods or regions where you work, where a strategic interest may exist in partnering, and develop a list and circulate that and find out where are those opportunities to get our needs more or better understood. And if we go to the next slide, bringing together multiple communities to represent their needs and interests. So how does the community currently work together and who isn't at the table? To do this, we'd like to plan a SWOT, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis of how the community currently collaborates, what kind of structure is in place to facilitate these discussions, and where can improvements be made. After that, we'd look to report on the various barriers that certainly exist to participation and recommend strategies to increase inclusivity within our own community's leadership, so that the community leadership in English-speaking Quebec can really more accurately reflect the various communities that comprise it. And I'm thinking certainly that there is an increasingly diverse community in English-speaking Quebec. We know that we need to do work to involve the regions. And, certainly there's an ongoing question around how we engage what Joe Pesci referred to as the youths, or young English-speaking Quebecers. And the fact that I made that reference, I think, demonstrates I'm not equipped to do that myself, despite appearances. So we are inviting and really looking to the community to provide some of this input so that we can have a more effective plan. And I think I'm done talking. I'm going to hand things back to Susanna, and she'll introduce the breakout rooms.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, hi. Thank you, Riley, and thank you so much to our presenters today, our roundtable chairs, and also all of the members of the roundtables who have worked so hard on this, on the plan so far. We're so excited. It was really exciting for me to watch those presentations and see how far we've come in terms of the development of the plan and these action items that are starting to take place. It's very exciting. So what we're going to do now is give everyone here the opportunity to, actually, we can stop the screen share for now. Perfect. So we are going to give everyone here the opportunity to choose one of the 4 development areas that they would like to spend time with right now. So I will ask in a minute, we're going to open up breakout rooms. They are self-selecting. So I will ask all of the roundtable members to please select their respective roundtable development area groups. Anyone here who is not a roundtable member, you just heard some presentations from each of the development areas. I encourage you to choose a development area that either you are most interested in learning more about or that you feel you can lend your expertise to. We're going to have about 40 minutes now to really get to work and to look at the action items that need to take place between now and March 2023, which are outlined in the plan, and start thinking about what are the resources needed to make these happen, who are some of the people or the organizations that could be in charge of making sure these actions happen, and what kind of support do we need from the QCGN. So we are going to be opening up breakout rooms. Each breakout room has a facilitator. So myself, Michelle, Maureen, and Ariel, who are all on this call, will each be facilitating one of the breakout rooms. And each breakout room will have a work template to go through. And so your facilitators will share that with you once we have moved into our breakout rooms. Like many of our presenters said, both of our presenters and Riley said, we are always looking for new members to sit on the roundtables. So this is your chance if you are interested to find out more about what this work looks like. And if you are interested in joining one of the roundtables, please do be in touch with Riley following the community forum, and he will connect you with those groups. So if we can now open up the breakout rooms, and I will add one more thing before you head out, that we will be coming together for a plenary following this work. The rooms will be closing at 11:45. 11:50, the rooms will be closing. And if each group can nominate a volunteer to share the key takeaways from their work block to speak at the plenary after the breakout rooms, that would be great. So with that, please self-select. You can choose your own breakout rooms. And a heads up to the representation breakout room. I will be your facilitator and I will be joining you momentarily. I just want to stay here to make sure everyone gets off to the right places before we start. So go ahead and please join a breakout room, and the rooms will be closing at 11:50. So I hope that you all had got some good work done and had some important conversations surrounding these action items. What I got cut off in saying, but that I will now say to the group is, if you are not currently a roundtable member, but you were inspired by the conversations happening in these breakout rooms and by the work that's being done, and you have the capacity to join a roundtable, or you just want to hear more about what that entails, please do reach out to Riley and let him know, and he will connect you with the roundtable that you are interested in participating in, or just tell you more about what it means to be a roundtable member. So with that being said, we would love to hear from a representative from each of the breakout rooms and share kind of key takeaways and some of the work, a reflection on some of the work that you did in the past, the last 35-40 minutes. So I'm just going to remove my spotlight here. Is there a roundtable, sorry, a breakout room, I should say. Oh, and Riley's put his email address in the chat so you can reach him there. Is there a breakout room representative who would like to volunteer to go first?
So I'll go first. It's Catherine. I'll break the ice. So I was on the representation. I don't want to look at myself. Hold on. I can't talk if you guys are spotlighting me. It's making me nervous.
Okay, I can unspotlight you.
Please
no
stop.
worries. There you go.
Thank you very much. Because all I'm doing is looking at myself. No, thanks. I lost my, okay, so I was on the representation breakout room. And basically what we were talking about was we need to know where the gaps are, where our community is not represented. I mean, off the top of our heads, there's stuff that we can say like, oh, government, this and that, but where specifically is the English community not represented or underrepresented? And how do we find our allies in order to help facilitate us penetrating the different sectors and the different industries where we want our community to have a shot or a chance or a voice around the table. In order to do that, we need to identify who those are, but more importantly, we need to build a strategy. So for instance, we talked about having a map of organizations or industries, an outside of Quebec map, an inside of Quebec map. Also, though, a strategy on who's contacting these organizations. So there's not 50 members doing the same thing, right? Coinciding with that, we envision having tables, sectoral tables, where trust is built and information is shared. So when we have the one or two people contacting that person, you know, our way in, they are representing the group, and we have trust that these people that are there are going to help facilitate and really communicate the concerns or the needs or whatever. So grosso modo, that's what we said. I don't know if you wanted me to add more info, but.
No, I think that's great, Catherine. I'm just going to open up the floor for a few minutes. If anyone has any questions or comments about the work that the Representation Roundtable is doing, based either on the presentation that we heard from at the beginning that Riley gave, or based on what Catherine just shared.
Okay, Katie, I think, has her hand up. I see her doing
Oh
this.
yes, Katie, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I'm fumbling around. I just wanted to say that the representation, just what you just talked about, we were talking about as well on the organizational roundtable. Obviously, finding those gaps in whose diverse voices are an important part. So moving forward, it would be great to make sure we share that information across. We were having anyway, I'll go into what we presented, but it's really aligned. And I think it's getting to the point in the work where the tables are aligning and making sure we're not doing the work twice. So we will be in touch, Catherine.
Well, I think it's great you pointed that out, Katie, because actually Roderick brought up a couple times. I think it was Roderick who brought it up, or maybe it was, anyways, I'm not sure. But it was brought up a couple times in our working session about the overlap between representation and the organizational network health tables, and the need for collaboration on several of these items. So it's I'm glad you brought it up, Katie, and I'm glad that the organizational and network health table recognizes it and the representation table recognizes it, and now we can start that work together. Are there any other questions or comments for the representation roundtable, or the representation development area, I should say? Okay, great. Well, Katie, do you want to, would you like to go next and take on the organizational network health?
Yes, I think as everyone, we would have liked more time. We're getting into it, but the main thing for us is we really focused in on trying to get our sectors that would be represented, and the representative groups that we want to bring in. So again, that's where that overlap is. In terms of best ways, I think we talked a lot about whether or not we need a needs assessment and the value of having a needs assessment, and there were concerns raised of if groups, we've filled out needs assessments and then we move on and the information is lost. So making sure that we're approaching this in a way that the organizations that we contact and are getting information from don't feel overwhelmed, that we do it in a concise way, in the best way to do it. Obviously, we want to have diverse voices on it, and I feel that there was a lot of expertise on best ways to make sure we'll get everyone's voices in. But the main thing is trying to figure out who we will be speaking to and the method of getting information around what their capacity building needs are and what services they provide. So we really just are at the cusp of that right now. And I think moving forward, it will be really important with representation group to talk about, make sure we've identified, we target the right groups once we've decided on our sectors and having them from all of the regions. So I don't know if anyone from the table would like to add to that.
Or if there are any questions for Katie or for anyone who is sitting on the organizational network health roundtable, or who was participating in that working group. Megan, go ahead.
I would just add that we discussed briefly the idea that we need to create a survey to share with these organizations, and that finding someone who is an expert in survey building is something that the Qcgn could help us with. And I'd like to throw out that I think that person and that survey could serve multiple roundtables at the same time.
Great, thank you, Megan. Any other questions or comments for organizational and network health? Okay, great. Well, let's move on. Does someone from either funding or data want to go next?
I'll go for it's Debbie for funding.
Thank you, Debbie. Go ahead.
I will preface this by the fact that I was the only roundtable member on that in the discussion group, and we had a funder and one other person. So it was a very limited discussion. We will go with that. So we had three questions. 4 actions, one of which we decided not to tackle. We dealt with the official language action plan and provincial election. We figured most of those were pretty much done anyway, so we wouldn't look at that. But report on funding, how do we get a report on funding? We need to survey what currently exists, where the gaps are, and we need to develop indicators, those reliable indicators of community needs. Or do we already have them? We weren't sure on that. So we came up with the idea of either a survey or needs assessment, or even potentially even a SWOT analysis, like Riley was talking about earlier. We also talked about the need to consult the community stakeholders, that again, we need to go into some sort of a community survey, and that could be rolled into the needs assessment. So trying not to go too much to the community to get their input, because the more you ask, the less they're likely to contribute. So if you could sort of condense it into one ask, probably be better. Question we had was, how would that database be updated and maintained? So obviously we saw we suggested that the creation of that database and the survey could be done through Qcgn if they are taking on that role as a backbone organization. Then to me, that's what would be part of that role. Encourage collaboration on applications for funding. We find sometimes that people don't like to share their opportunities for funding applications, because then they're going into competition with fellow community organizations, and that's not always ideal. And then we went into the consulting the community stakeholders on the strategies and tools needed to support the organizations in obtaining stable and recurring core funding. We'd like to see more participation in these forums. I mean, we've got 32 people here this morning. It's not exactly, I mean, it's well representative of the community, but how do we get more participation? How do we get, also people are tired of these large Zoom meetings, right? There's some interest in getting back together, and then there's some reluctance in getting back together, as we heard from one of the members at our table. But we need to get feedback from the larger cross section of the community, and I think there's still some trust that needs building across this network, the English speaking community network. That I think Qcgn has gone a long way in starting to build that, but I think there's still work to be done in the trust building, and until you can get the community we have a good section of the community or more participation. We also talked about incentivizing. How can we incentivize people to participate? Barbara was talking about how they wanted people to come into a meeting, but then they offered prizes if they participated, and they got 50% more turnout or things like this. So how can we explore ways to increase increased participation? It's about we got a little distracted on other discussions too, so I apologize.
No worries. That was great. Thank you so much, Debbie. Any questions or comments for the funding group? No. Oh, Riley, go ahead.
I think it's really good progress, everything that was come up with in that group. Notwithstanding the fact that participation was lower than you might have hoped for, and we're very conscious of the fact that we need to I think getting back together in person will be a big boon. It's too bad that some more people were not present, because there has been quite a bit of work done on the reporting. There are, of course, those reports that were mentioned during my presentation on funding, and we'll have the chance in probably a couple months' time to take a look at what that looks like, and report back on how those views are being circulated within government. There are a number of dialogue days and things that are being planned to convey concerns. So I'm happy to speak a little bit more to some of that work. But we'll have to pick that up, I think, when the roundtables get back together as well. But I just wanted to let everybody know that that piece of work is being done.
Thank you, Riley. So last but not least, let's hear from the data working group.
I forgot to nominate someone before we got kicked out of the breakout room. I don't know if there's anybody who has a burning urge to speak to what we discussed a little bit. If so, please make yourself known.
Anyone from data want to step in and share some of the takeaways from your working block?
If not, I can also just share some of the things that are in the document if nobody else wants to discuss.
Sure, yeah, if there's no one else wants to share, then Maureen, that would be great if you don't mind.
Sure. So when we're talking about identifying the areas and sectors where there are gaps, there is discussion of some of the resources that were available. Someone brought up Paul Hawley at the Association for Canadian Studies, just the general need for more researchers and money. There are a couple people who mentioned just at a base level where we find this data, who is doing what when it comes to data, the need for research sharing as a lot of members are siloed. There's the fact that a lot of English-speaking organizations aren't utilizing all funding avenues. And then also talking about what sectors are being funded and do we look like them when talking about kind of equivalent organizations in the rest of Canada that have French language minority groups similar to the Qcgn. When talking about the feasibility of a shared model, there's discussion about under what lens are we collecting data, how this would need to be a joint venture between organizations and how there could also be risk in having one shared model. And then when talking about frameworks for measuring capacity, there was discussion about how data and stats in the past have been put into layman's terms with programs through the Qcgn or that were offered by Stats Canada, and how those could be utilized so people could build capacity and better utilize data for their organizations. I don't know if anybody wanted to add anything, if I missed anything.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Much appreciated. Anyone from the data breakout room want to add anything? Any questions or comments for anyone from the breakout, the data breakout room? Okay. Well, before we move on, I just wanted to open up the floor for any general questions about the community development plan, about the process, or about any of the actions that have been shared. And that can be directed at any specific development area or towards Riley, Qcgn, any questions at all about this process?
Susanna, I think my question is just, it's time to attack this somewhat aggressively and make sure that we stay on top of these committees. Meeting schedules, I know everyone's got too many meetings, but this is important. We should make sure to drive this.
Definitely. Thank you, Fred. Riley, go ahead.
I have a question actually for the representation roundtable because I wasn't there for very long. There was an action in there about the supporting of existing initiatives, and I know that Celine Cooper was here, but I think she had to take off a little bit early. But was there talk about that project, or did anything come up with respect to that piece of work that we could maybe move forward on together?
So I will say, as the facilitator of the representation breakout room, that we actually did not get, that was the last action item on our list. So we actually unfortunately didn't get there. But I do think this is, it's kind of a good time to bring up that I just actually had a quick look through each of the templates. And I know that that wasn't enough time, and I know that there's still a lot of work to do. I don't think any of the breakout rooms got through their whole list of actions. But I think these templates have been really helpful in kind of starting the work and starting the conversations. And my suggestion is actually that they get referred to moving forward and used in the next roundtable meetings and the roundtable meetings that follow as kind of a map and to help direct the work that we're doing. So my hope moving forward is that at the next roundtable meetings, you can come back to these worksheets and finish the work that we were not able to do today or to complete today. And I will once again plug the roundtable groups for anyone who's not on one of the roundtables. I mean, if you don't have the capacity to do so, obviously we totally understand, but if you are able to, it would be great to have even more community members sitting around those tables while the work is getting done, to make sure that we have a wide range of voices, organizations, and communities represented.
So I'll actually piggyback on that really quickly to say pretty much exactly the same thing that Susanna just said, but more to the point. I know that there were a lot of people that had the chance to join roundtables for the first time today to be part of those discussions, and that many of these discussions, of course, got cut kind of short while there was much left to be discussed. Some of you may wish to, continue to talk to some of your partners around the roundtable and get back to some of these themes. If you were part of a roundtable discussion today and you'd really like to be part of that particular roundtable, please let me know, and I will give your coordinates to the chairs of that roundtable so that you could be included in the next meeting that they have. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Riley. Okay, so if there's no further questions about the community development plan process, we're going to move into the last piece of this meeting today, this forum today, is to look at a proposed evaluation plan for the community development plan. So, obviously it's important for us to evaluate and assess whether or not the community development plan is successful. And when we talk about success, we're talking not only, so it's broken down into two categories, I should say. So whether or not the community development plan and each of the roundtable and development areas have been successful in achieving the KPIs that are outlined in the plan, the key performance indicators. And the second piece is whether or not the plan as a whole has actually helped, had a positive impact on the growth and vitality of the English-speaking community in Quebec. So we're looking at both the plan and the individual action items and KPIs and the plan as a whole and the process. And how has the plan had a positive impact on those people who are affected, or those people who have participated in the process, specifically roundtable members and community members. So what I'm going to share with you right now is really full disclosure, this is just a draft. It's a proposal that we are now turning to you and looking for your feedback on it, but an overview of what this evaluation plan could look like. So I'm not sure who's running the PowerPoint, but if you could please share the screen with the perfect, thank you. And if we could full screen that. Yes. Excellent. Okay, so this is just a snapshot. Oh, yeah, that's great. This is just a snapshot of what we are proposing. And so the idea is that each year of the plan, so starting in September 2022, starting right now, there would be kind of two touch points for evaluation. One in September, which would be kind of like a evaluation light, and then a more robust evaluation to happen every March. So here you see outlined September 2022 and March 2023 as the timeline. So this would continue to happen every year of the plan. So every September and every March, this would be repeated. The idea is that each September, we take a look at the action items and the KPIs of the community development plan of each development area, and we evaluate whether or not we have been successful in achieving those KPIs. So as you know, for those of you who are familiar with the plan, each action item is given a timeline of either September or March of that year. I should say March or September of that year. And so this is our chance in September to look at all of the action items and KPIs that we wanted to achieve September, and identify whether or not we've been successful. So the participants for this portion of the evaluation would be roundtable members and the Qcgn. The Qcgn would be responsible for tracking and the more qualitative side of the data. So, yes, I should say the tracking, Qcgn will be responsible for the tracking aspect. And for those roundtable members who have been involved in this decision, this was something that roundtable members identified as being very important, that the Qcgn is really keeping track of things like how many organizations are involved in a specific action item, or how many people are sitting around specific tables. So the Qcgn will play a role in that. And the roundtable participants, their role would be in completing an evaluation survey based on the successes and the challenges that each roundtable faced in achieving their KPIs. So questions along the lines of, were you able to achieve your KPIs? If so, how were you able to do that? If not, why not? What were the challenges that your roundtable group encountered in working towards these action items? And what were the successes that you reached? And so I'll go back to say, I realized when I was talking about the tracking and the Qcgn, it's really, it's more of the quantitative data. Actually, I misspoke and said qualitative, but the quantitative data coming from the Qcgn and the more qualitative data coming from the evaluation survey of the roundtable members. Moving on to March, where a more robust evaluation will take place, we will once again repeat the same evaluation of the community development plan, so the action items and the KPIs. And I'm not going to go through it again. It's the same process, the tracking from the Qcgn, the evaluation surveys from the roundtable participants. However, in March, we will also be evaluating the experience of both the roundtable members and community members at large as being a part of this community development plan. So does the community identify further growth, and has the community been positively impacted by the work that is being done through the community development plan through the eyes of both roundtable members and community members? How has this process helped to further the growth and vitality of our community? So those will be done. The roundtable members will complete a confidential survey. And at the forum in March, once all community members have received updates from the roundtable members on the successes of the actions they've taken, the community members, so those community members at the forum who are not sitting on roundtables, will also be given a survey. And surveys will be conducted on how they see the community development plan has improved the growth and vitality of the community. All of these results will be shared through the Qcgn website and also via email or newsletter, so all community members will be able to see and track the success of the plan as we go year to year. The idea is that these two touch points will happen, evaluation touch points will happen each year in September and March. And finally, at the completion of the plan in 2027, a report will be put together, a full evaluation report will be put together that basically is a culmination of all the results of each of these evaluations. So a look at each year, where the successes were, where the challenges lay, what KPIs we were able to achieve, where we fell short in achieving those KPIs, and be able to look at a full evaluation of the complete plan separated by years. So I hope that was clear. And like I said, this is really just, this is a proposed draft. And we are definitely open to receiving your comments and feedback on this proposed evaluation plan and what we may be able to tweak or add or take away in order to make the plan, to make the plan more successful. So with that, I will open up the floor. If anyone does have any questions or comments, I'm happy to do my best to answer them. I don't see any. Oh, Riley, go ahead.
So thank you, Susanna. I just want to really quickly add that, stress rather that, some of the motivations as to why we wanted to construct the evaluation plan in this way and propose it to the roundtables in the way that we see it. This whole notion of evaluation happening at different levels, at one level with the roundtables to look at the key performance indicators that they themselves developed and look to track, and on another level to evaluate how that ties to a broader impact that's felt in the community. That goes back to previous assessments that we did, and you can actually see this in the report that's online to accompany the community development plan, where we actually evaluated the mechanism that was in place before for the community to set collective priorities. This assessment that was done at the time indicated a very strong desire for a process that would be more accountable, more transparent, and more grassroots, with evaluation being a very key part of this. So this is an effort really to respond to some of those needs and to explore ways in which we could deliver on that all together. And that I think that Suzanne has done a really great job of putting together a plan that captures this. I do want to voice what some of you are probably thinking, in that it is an ambitious plan, and it is going to require resources and investment. And that's going to depend on two things. It's going to depend on the will of the community to keep coming together and keep participating very actively in this process through the roundtables, at these forums, and of course, anytime in between. It's also going to count on the people with means to invest in these processes and support these processes. So a message to everybody is that if you see value in this work, and if you see the potential for this to create impact and add to your community's vitality, that's what needs to happen. And we're being very, very transparent about that. And I look forward to being part of the unfolding of this process.
Thank you, Riley. I think that was very helpful framing, so much appreciated. Any other thoughts, comments about evaluation of the plan? Okay. Well, then it looks like we are actually on track to end a few minutes early. Before I turn things over to Sylvia for some closing remarks, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to you all for being here today, to the members of the roundtables and the chairs for all of your the incredible hard work you put into this over the past year, but really especially in the last few months. The work that you've been doing and facilitating with your team has been amazing. And of course, to Riley, who has worked tirelessly on this project. It's been such a pleasure working with all of you. And it's been a pleasure for me to work with the Qcgn over the last year and a bit on this. So I just want to say a really big thank you for this experience, and for allow me to work with you all on this. So with that, I will turn things over to Sylvia for some closing remarks.
Okay, I've got it. Now I've got it, right? So I have a few notes here. So this has been an extraordinary morning. I want to thank all of you, the stakeholders who have put the work into it. Of course, heartfelt thanks to Eva for being here, for opening, and for Riley, and for the chairs. It has been an extraordinary moment. With the launch of the community development plan, the community has reached an important milestone, I think, in its growth. For the last 3 years, we've maintained with one another an ongoing discussion to bring us to common understanding of our shared challenges. Each point in the discussion was another step towards the realization of a strategic development plan for the English-speaking community of Quebec. Now, we've arrived at the beginning. It's the beginning. an evergreen approach to the work, an ambitious and aspirational moment. As a community, we are exploring the art of the possible. We are undertaking a collective journey more than ever. So I've been around for a long time, and many of you know that I often talk about the art of the possible. I think that today I've seen terrific work in that sense. Over the next 5 years, the Community Vitality Roundtables will continue to work together, and we commit to support you to reach the objectives set out in the plan. These include addressing chronic underfunding of the English-speaking community organizations of Quebec, ensuring that we have access to information needed to make evidence-informed decisions, strengthening our voice within decision-making bodies in our communities, as well as the provincial and federal levels, and creating opportunities for organizations to develop skills and resources for more effective collaboration between stakeholders. We count on you, the current stakeholders, to help in this journey. And we encourage you to reach out to other groups to join in the journey. Today, I heard about sectoral groups. I heard about groups outside of Quebec. I believe that many do have a stake in wanting the English-speaking community to be a vital official language minority community in Canada. The Qcgn is fully committed to its backbone role in this essential process. And the roundtables will have our full support as they endeavor to meet these challenges. Our team has worked diligently in the last few years, providing the space and the resources necessary for the roundtables to create an effective plan that reflects the diverse voices in our community. All the team. Riley is, your point of contact, but I think you can believe Riley when he says he has the full support of the staff in the organization and the volunteers. Over the coming months and years, we will continue to dedicate time and resources to support the deployment of this plan, to evaluate, as you saw Susanna just speak of a minute ago, to evaluate its actions, to promote it to the broader community and help the roundtables to grow and to mobilize for additional support. So, without you, we can't do it. So let's bring more of you into the tent, and don't be shy to tell us, all of us, what you feel needs more to be done, how we can tweak something, how you can tweak something. I think we have to develop that continued trust as the elephant in the room is that we've come a long way in the trust that we've had to develop around this community development plan. I hope we've demonstrated that over the past 3 years. I know that Riley has been consistent in reaching out to you, and he continues to be there. I continue to be there, and the rest of the team and the volunteers. And so with that, thank you, and I wish you a great weekend. So is somebody going to do something more? Susanna, is this it? Am I the last voice?
This is it.
Okay, terrific. Keep safe, keep well, and I swear to God, we have to find a way to meet in person. Don't you think? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.